Councilors Alfonso, Singh, and Jacobs. We're here again for what is really part two of a conversation that we started just a short while ago regarding matters at the Georgetown City Council. We now know that the mayor has said quite a number of things during a press conference that was held today at his office. And this is really to give you a chance to respond to some of the matters that were raised at that press conference. And I want to start off with Councillor Jacobs. The mayor said that this conversation regarding the institutional rates for political parties started some time ago, and that you were actively involved in the conversations as well as it relates to the measures, as it relates to the process, etc. How do you respond to that?
Yeah, so first of all, it was raised at a statutory meeting by Mayor, and then Councillor Chase Green actually said that, listen, it has to go to a committee for deliberation before it comes to full council, because council is basically run on a committee basis, so that's clear procedure. So I am not a part of the finance committee, but what I do as a councillor who is obviously caring and wants to work in the best interest for the citizens of Georgetown is go to some of these meetings so I can hear, and then I can obviously do place my input. So what happened at that particular meeting that myself and Don Singh, Councillor Don Singh was a part of, we shared we raised some alarms in this particular document, shared some concerns, and then we said, listen, this is a conversation that cannot be a short conversation. It has to be deliberated. So what you will do is to add some, because a policy was presented to us then, and we said, listen, this has to be deliberated, add a few points, bring it back to the finance committee for further deliberation. And let me make it quite clear. We as councillors, we listen. We listen, because councillors come up with different ideas. So what you want to do is listen, then assess, do your own investigation, and for instance, for a matter of this nature, you don't want to shut it down completely at the start. So what we did, what we usually do, is listen, gather information, bring it back to the finance committee, and then we make a decision. I wasn't a part of any other meeting in connection with that particular document.
Do you remember some of the concerns that were raised about the way in which it was presented?
Yes, it speaks directly to what these political parties had owed before. And my good councillor here, Don Singh, can tell you directly, we agree that, listen, if you're going to look at a document, what needs to happen is that the political parties who had owed before, they need to clear their debts. And then you can probably look at it and see if it makes sense or not. But everything, like I said before, it had to be deliberated. And like I mentioned, we deliberated at that time. We said, listen, this is what needs to happen. And then it also needs to come back for further deliberation, because, I mean, it has to be. Because you have to make decisions in the best interest of the citizens. And like I mentioned, our councillors like to listen. Because you just don't want to assume that you want to shut everything down and put it on like other persons are peddling. We listen and then make informed decisions.
The initial position was that this particular measure, putting it in place, would benefit the People's National Congress. There's a number floating around right now that the People's National Congress owes some $6.7 billion to the City Council.
Yeah, no,
how do you respond to that?
And now
figure's correct.
The figure's correct.
Yeah.
And now we understand why they were in such a rush to do this. And let me make it absolutely clear. At the last statutory meeting, we as PPP councillors disagreed with this institutional rate.
Vehemently.
Disagreed. It was
walked out.
Exactly. We disagreed with this institutional rate. Our councillors stood up and gave our reasons why. We said, listen, we cannot be from political parties and try and, because it be conflict of interest. If you want to decide how much you should pay, and then you're on the Citizens Bank back in terms of demand notices, and then you continue to say that you're cash-strapped.
Could I want to add to that?
Please.
So Councillor Jacobs made mention that it was deliberated, or it was brought at the level of the finance committee. I want to speak to the constitution of the finance committee. The finance committee is essentially all PNC councillors save Councillor Singh. So whatever is deliberated there, the Mayor Mentore and Councillor Saul make it seem as if it's some democratic committee where decisions are made all together and
The
we say
majority would still
kumbaya
rule.
and we hold hands. But it's absolutely not like that. It's absolutely not like that. When we disagree vehemently. But our our vote does not count. There's one PPPC councillor there versus 6 PNC councillors. So to make it seem as if we were all included in this decision making is a fabrication, is a complete fabrication. And then to say that we were all aware of these things. No, we were not aware. The first time, as Councillor Jacobs said, this was brought to the Finance Committee, not to the full not to the council. It was taken to the Finance Committee, and the next time that I saw it was at Monday's Statutory Committee, where they tried to sneak it in as a last agenda item, and hoping that we might be too tired to object strenuously.
Correct. Yeah.
But that is not what happened. That is absolutely not what happened. Right. Despite the narrative that they're attempting to peddle to save themselves or to save face, is that it was discussed all in tandem and everybody gave their input. Well, the input that we gave is no. Hell no.
Yes.
And I quote myself verbatim there. Hell no. Slammed my hand on the desk and I walked out, because that there is a disgusting policy. It's a disgusting policy that is targeted.
Before you jump in, Councillor Singh, I want to ask you one thing. Keep that thought. But as an extreme minority member in that committee, in the Finance Committee,
Yes.
do you feel as though your input is usually taken into consideration when making decisions of the committee?
I am listened to, as I listen to everyone, but I think that they come there with pre-arranged ideas of what will be the end result. So we do have discussions. I make sure that my thoughts are known and those of my party that I represent. As Councillor Jacobs was referring to, I let them know very clearly that the one time that it came to the Finance Committee, that it says, look, this is not going to be retroactive, because that will be an issue, a huge issue. I did not know the figures at the time, but I did sense that some level of cunning, some level of depravity was going to happen. And let me finish the thought that I was starting with. I think Mayor Mentore today revealed what was it. He says this is to give the political parties a break for campaigning. Are you goddamn kidding me? Political parties need a break? No, they need to go out and fundraise just like everybody else.
Correct.
You know who needs a break? The citizens of Georgetown. Exactly. We are stuck in a cycle of the Georgia Mayor City Council of Georgetown now offers one core service. That's garbage collection, and they can't even do that.
You said a word just now, and I had to write it down and circle it. Retroactive? What does that mean? What does that mean to the average person? $6.7 billion retroactive?
Well, I didn't know the figures at the time, but I suspected mischief was afoot. So I made sure that my thoughts were known, that anything owed had to be cleared before anything else would be discussed. Any reduction in taxes or anything. But now, clearly now we see the motive.
Exactly.
And as it currently stands, the language of the arrangement that was put in place, it's retroactive? Meaning that, the rates that existed long before, there's now a deduction on it? What does it mean?
No, we raised this same issue Monday. And again, we were railroad. We were basically said, no, and it actually went to a vote. And I must say, it was to a vote and we were outvoted. And it's obvious because they have the majority. This is something that they planned. This is not something that, it's a fly-by-night, it just came. They planned this. They understand what they actually owed, and it's probably over $6.7 billion.
Yes.
And we want to know where the problem is. Let them pay their rates and taxes.
That's right.
And the city will be in order.
Correct.
That's right.
Can you imagine what an infusion of $6.7 billion is going to do for the city?
I used the reference of Miss Sandra yesterday. I want to know what $6.7 billion could do for Miss Sandra.
Miss Sandra might end up
First of all, for me, Ms. Sandra would be happy to know that with that influx of cash, we'd be, first of all, upgrading our motor pool in terms of garbage trucks, because the city is in a terrible, terrible state. We are doing 1970s tonnage in 2024, and I have ad nauseum told them at council and at committees that the city is expanding exponentially, and you have to keep up with it. This one collection you do from 1978 cannot work now. We have buildings going up. You need to hire more people to monitor more things, public health, and that is what Miss Sandra would receive if the money is used.
If the 6.7 billion is paid.
Because as you know, we haven't had audits for 10 years until this council went in, and the PPC councils insisted that audits must be done, the city register must be done, and that is the only way we can move forward. I mean, bemoaning the fact that the government don't give you nothing, the government, yeah, because the money goes in a black hole.
Picking up on that narrative about the government not giving anything, like how is that arrangement even set as it relates to government subvention to councils, which wouldn't just be the Georgetown City Council, but to other local government bodies
Sure.
as well?
Sure. So there's something called the Fiscal Transfers Act, and the Fiscal Transfers Act has a formula there, and it does make provisions for central government to subsidize the local government, some local government authorities, right? But there's a list of conditions that need to be met. First and foremost, I think if I remember correctly, condition number 1, according to the law, is that the budget for next year needs to be presented. The estimates for the budget for next year need to be presented by November 15th. Never been done. Also, the city council must give an accounting of the revenues and expenditures of the previous year by March 31st. Again, never been done. Ask you, Councillor Saul, who's the finance chair, can tell you, never been done under his tenure.
Supplementary
never been
budget
done.
soon come.
It's so under the PNC's tenure, these conditions have never been met. How can you, in your right mind, ask the central government to take taxpayers' money and just dump it into an unaccountable abyss? It is unconscionable. It's not possible. And illegal, because those conditions have not been met. Those conditions have not been met. But you know what would save the city? What would save all that money? Or what would save the city and provide the city with the revenues that we need to take Georgetown into the future? Not even into the future, into the present. If they pay their rates and taxes. If the parties that they represent, the PNC, pays their rates and taxes. Look, that's what would save us.
Darren, let me just jump into here. I mean, there are glitches in the tax paying system. They account, I think it was 15% are lost. That these accounts are jumbled, and they can't. If I go to pay $10 in my account, it goes into his account instead of my account. 15% of ratepayers are affected by this glitch. For how long? For how many years? We don't know. So once you may think you are up to date, I've paid my rates and taxes, then you get a demand notice for $700,000 because your interest adds on. This is incompetency at the highest level, and they always seek to throw it onto administration rather than they themselves, the directors and the policy makers, who make sure things are done.
Do people really understand the distinction between the city council and the city administration?
No, it's clear.
What is the distinction?
So go ahead.
Yeah. So no. So the city administration, who's basically headed by the town clerk, they obviously receives directions from the council, and then they execute. But I must say they're acting under some serious circumstances and not having adequate tools, not having the adequate resources. It's not because of them; it's because of how they're managed, who's in charge of you. And then simple things, as in, if you own a business, you need to have that admin, councillor, in this case, conversation, so that you understand what's happening. You have that sense of making informed decisions. And none of that basically happens if we don't, from this side, push for those things to happen. And then, I heard the mayor earlier speak to different minutes and what is said. If he basically goes through those minutes, or even make it public, the public can see the type of the representations and contributions that we make as PPC councillors. And Monday, I'd just like to get back to Monday and this probably close to $7 billion that they owe, and we now understand why they were actually pushing for that institutional rate. We practically begged to not to allow this to happen. Mr. Alfonso spoke about slamming the table, but I myself got up and said this should not happen. You're going through a document, and you even seen a document. It's not even a proper document. They're making changes as they go through just to approve. So it's clear that it wasn't even well thought out. But we understand why. It's to have a deduction on that $7 billion, and if they pay it, what can actually happen to the citizens? It's clear that they don't have the citizens, interest at heart, and we need a change. Like,
Absolutely,
really need a
man.
change.
And this narrative that the central government is playing games and stifling the city council, that needs to stop right now, because pay your taxes. $6.7 billion can do so much for the city. That needs to
The
stop.
old GRA 1.9 billion.
Remember, there was a GRA as well as an NIS issue.
Yeah. Well, I'm not sure about the NIS issue. I think that might have
They're paying it off.
paying it off.
They're paying it
But
off.
GRA has not one payment has been made to them. And do you know how that mounted up? They got the 1.9 billion.
How?
They deducted PAYE from their employees, but did not pay it over to GRA. They just took it and it's fraudulent conversion, in other words, buddy.
So I'm hearing all of that that you're saying in the context. This is a sort of a PNC dominated council,
57 years now,
Right.
58 years.
and at the same time, the PPP councillors are being referred to as pathologically mendacious.
Thank you very much.
I just want to throw that in
I
there.
wanted to speak to some of the language used to describe our councillors. We don't need to attack anyone's integrity. We allow the facts to speak for themselves, and the citizens can see. A councillor said that I have handlers, we have this, but we don't need to do that. We'll allow the facts that is presented in front of us, that close to $7 billion, to be the answer to all of the negatives or the false rhetoric that was said today.
Yeah.
We don't need to see anything else.
Looking at that press conference, if you can call it that, it was more of a series of ad hominem attacks. Nothing really was said. Nothing of substance was said. It didn't address the core issue. The core issue is that you are trying to railroad this policy through.
Trying, or it was already done?
It was you've bullied this policy through because you want to benefit your political taskmasters, and they say, it's all political parties will benefit. No, the PPP is committed to paying their fair share of rates and taxes, and they have been doing that. We don't need that. The PPP does not need that. The only parties that this will benefit, because the policy speaks the parties been in existence for more than 10 years, so they've excluded the smaller parties by virtue of that already, right?
Yeah.
The only parties that stand to benefit there are the PNC and the AFC. So that is the core issue. All the other things in that press conference, all those other ad hominem attacks, that's fluff. That is fluff. That's the core issue.
And if I just
Processing.
add to the next level of cunning, the original letter written asking for this tax reduction
That was referenced
came
yesterday,
from,
yes.
came from the AFC. Well, it's now headed by a math genius, clearly. So maybe those things. So yeah, the math man will sort of talk, but I suspected that they'd, rather than do it directly, they went a circumlocutorious route and says, you said it, buddy, and then we can fall in. That kind of glow in the dark kind of nonsense that they just do. Why can't they've been running this place for 58 years? 58 years, Darwin, and this city has slowly but surely degraded into chaos and dirtiness, and we can't do it anymore. For them to sit down there, Councillor Hines, Councillor Saul, and the mayor, and call us names and make innuendos towards our characters and integrity,
We don't need to do that.
we won't do that. But if you're calling me a liar, you're calling me a thief, you say that he who alleges must prove. Bring the proof.
Yes.
I'm very interested in this conversation about the letter. Has the letter itself been presented to the council? Was it shared with the council?
I can't speak to that. What I do
But
want to say.
should that have been part of the process for transparency? For
So
transparency
what,
reasons.
so what happened at the time is that the mayor actually brought it to full council, and then told us what it was and read a few lines of that letter, basically. And like I mentioned,
But it was never tabled and shared
no,
with all
it
the
wasn't.
councillors.
It wasn't tabled.
He was
It wasn't
offhand
shared.
thinking,
It wasn't-
we got a letter from AFC here.
Yeah, it
but,
was-
Yeah,
you know.
and almost as if they didn't know anything about it beforehand. Really,
We understand that it was planned.
It was planned. You really expect us to believe as if this was something that was received without prior knowledge? No, It wasn't. That's also part of their cunning, right? Really expect us to believe that you didn't know that this was coming?
In our conversation, I asked one question as we got ready to wrap up yesterday. What's the next step? Where do you go from here?
So what we'll do, we'll continue to fight this, and we want the citizens of Georgetown and by extension Guyana to fight with us, because they're the ones who have to feel the blunt of paying rates and taxes. So why shouldn't a political party pay rates and taxes? And we take up the seat in council, and like I mentioned, it's a conflict of interest. But it's disheartening, it is shameful to sit and listen to councillors, especially the mayor and Councillor Saul and Councillor Hines, who've been there for a while, who've been around politics, who should understand what the citizens need. But then, what they do, they put their party's interests first in terms of not trying to execute and provide betterment for the citizens of Georgetown. And this is what every single citizen need to realize. And fight with us. Fight this off. And we need to work together to fight this off. Because it's clearly a plan that they formulated and put together for their benefit. And it shows their level of thinking. They're selfish.
I do think the mayor did say exactly that they'll push their agenda, and he used the word agenda. So we know what they're about, but the next steps for us as PPPC councillors is to do what we've been doing all the time and represent the people. I am constituency 1, which is Alberton, Queenstown, Kingston.
That's my constituency.
Hope you voted for me. Vote for me next time. But I get calls and messages from people in the entire Georgetown, from Cummings Lodge to south to all over, and I always try to assist. If I can't assist, I'll ask a fellow councillor, can you? If Sylvia's time, I'll ask a minister, look man, see if you can help this out, whatever. And we always try to help in whatever, because we're here. Listen, I'll be very straight with you. This councillor walk or whatever, it's a stipend of $66,000 a month. You do this because you like civics and you like civic duty and you like to help people. That's the only reason why we're doing this. And when you're confronted with people with different agendas, then you're frustrated. Then you sometimes become angry, but we still push ahead because we know what we're about. We want to help Georgetown and by part of that, entire Guyana just get better, man. It's our time, and we all need to come on board, as it says, and as Councillor Jacob says, let the Guyana people fight with us to get where we need to go. Heading into 2026, 2028, 2030, this country is on a trajectory for greatness, but it takes all hands on deck.
Yeah.
Councillor Alfonso?
It's particularly atrocious that the agenda that they've spoken about, that they're going to continue to pursue their agenda. Their agenda seems to be, and the facts bear this out, it seems to be an agenda that is pursued at the expense of the residents and the citizens of Guyana, right? That's it. There's no, you can try and couch that in all sorts of ad hominem attacks and all sorts of insults and slurs and libelous statements, but the facts bear the truth out. What they're doing is putting the interests of party above the interests of the residents of Georgetown and the citizens of Guyana at large. And you ask me, well, where do we go from here? We're going to fight it. All options are on the table. We're looking at everything. This cannot stand. A political party cannot, the interest of a political party cannot be placed ahead of the interests of the residents of Georgetown and the citizens of Guyana. It cannot happen. It must not happen. And if we have anything to do with it, it will not happen. It cannot. Those rates and taxes, they need to be paid.
$6.7 billion.
$6.7 billion.
And just before,
go ahead.
I want the citizens to understand that and appreciate that when facts are presented, their response, like my good councillor mentioned, is libel statements, is attacking people's integrity. But what they need to do by, I don't know if they can do it by tomorrow, is pay their close to $7 billion. And then the city will be in a better place.
Correct.
Councillors, I want to thank you for taking the time to continue this conversation. Like I said, this is part 2. And like I wish you yesterday, the best of luck. I also want to say,
I'm sure there'll be a part 3 soon. Sooner or later.
And I want to say thank you as well to our viewers as well as our listeners. Take care, everyone. Thank you.